I'm Gary Treichler, and I got another question for you. How do you keep the gospel and people who are far away from God in the center of your small group? In Luke 15, he left the 99 and he went and got the one lost sheep. Last week we talked about bless 10. I want to give you a couple other ideas. One is the empty chair. It's an opportunity at the end of your small group to pull in an empty chair or an open chair and ask God who he would like to sit in that chair in the next week or 2 or 3. The chair is a reminder that the group is open to others. 1, people who may be far away from God. 2, need a place to connect and belong, or desire growth in their spiritual journey. The empty chair is a great reminder of the gospel and people who desperately need Jesus. Another idea is to share the gospel every week in your group. Now that may sound a little funny. I was very influenced by a man named David Nicholas, who I work for down in Florida. And every time David spoke, every time, whether it was up front at the church, a funeral, a wedding, he could be speaking to a group of businessmen, he would always share the gospel. So I went to David one time and I said, David, why do you always share the gospel? He said, Gary, Romans 1:16, for I am not ashamed of the gospel because it is the power of God that brings salvation to everyone who believes. The power is in the gospel, he said. It's not in me, it's not in our speaking ability, it's not even in our leadership of a small group. The power is in the gospel. And we need to not only preach the gospel to people who need to hear it, we need to hear it. We need to preach the essence of the Christian faith to our souls every day. Let me ask you another question. Who in your group might not know Jesus? Do you know? Do you really know? I mean, God knows, but do we really? I've heard too many stories of people who have been a part of a church for 20 years. They've been in leadership. And God got a hold of their heart and they said, I didn't know him for those 20 years. I know a group that I was in Vista, there were at least 3 or 4 that would say they didn't really know Jesus at the time. So if you were to share the gospel every week, how might you do that? 1, you could include it in the lesson. 2, you might ask, how did Mike share the gospel this week in his message? You could pray the gospel at the end of the group. You can practice sharing the gospel with each other. Here's what my friend David Nicholas would say in one way or another every week. Jesus, who is God, came to this earth and he lived a perfect life. He who knew no sin became sin for our sake. He took the punishment that you and I deserve. He was put to death, but death could not hold him. And on the 3rd day, he rose from the dead. The gospel is at the center of the heart of God. Is the gospel the center of your small group? I'll see you next week.